So the Vermont came out recently. I've played this ship for 2 days now, pretty much exclusively actually. 2 days is playing this boat, and I'm gonna give my thoughts on it. I think this ship is good, but not amazing. I really enjoy the guns about it, and I think that's pretty standard for everybody. It's just insane gun power. The 12 457 millimeter guns is just like the most massive broadside in the game. It allows you to overmatch 30 millimeters of armor, so you're no longer, like in a Montana or a Kurfürst, susceptible to a Hindenburg, for example, just kiting you out and constantly bouncing all your shells. A lot of these cruisers that are used to doing that to the 12 gun battleships aren't able to, and the nice thing about that is you're so accurate with these 12 guns that you're going to punch through most ships if you aim well. Like, this ship is amazingly consistent when you aim well and you catch people's broadsides or you catch people who have 30 millimeters of armor. I really, really, really can't stress that enough, how much these guns are awesome when you're shooting them. The problem is the reload. And that's 40 seconds you're waiting for every shot. And sure, you're going to get some massive damage, right? Like, we're in this game, it's 2 salvos and we're at 50k damage already, which is amazing. And we're going to get a shot on this Petro eventually and go up even more. So it's not like the damage potential of this ship is bad. It's just that you're not shooting very often, and that can be boring. The other problem, of course, is the hull. And, well, there's really nothing good about the hull. It's massive. It's really easy to hit. It takes tons of damage. So far, I haven't really been able to Citadel one of these things, but mine has certainly been Citadeled multiple times, so I don't know what's going on there, but it's just part of the ship. It's a big ship. It takes HE damage like crazy. 51 millimeters of armor isn't really going to help you that much against some of the current ships like Yoshino, Hindenburg, Goliath. I think all of those ones are able to full pen through that. So it's somewhat tanky, but it's so slow and so big that it doesn't really matter. So in situations where your team isn't pushing or you have to make a play, it's really difficult to, because you're so slow and you take so much damage. Like, a lot of the tier 10 battleships are way more maneuverable than this thing is. So you're able to dodge shells at range, you're able to maneuver, accelerate, all these different things to hopefully mitigate some damage as you're trying to push into, say, a critical island position or something like that, next to a cap or on a cap even. This ship is not that kind of pushing ship. It can tank for a little bit, but it dies. It's not a ship to go get you a key position like maybe an Ohio would be, or a Kremlin or something like that. It's not going to be a ship like those that are going to be pushing in and getting strong positions. What it is doing is it will just destroy anything that gives it broadside or has 30 millimeters of armor. This thing is very, very consistent at that, and that's why you play it. If you're expecting a ship that's gonna be a very maneuverable reaction-based ship, that's not what you're getting. You need to understand that to play this ship well, you need extremely good map awareness. I, so far, haven't really been in a situation where I felt like I wasn't able to impact the battle. As we Death Strike a booster for salvo. Gunpowder, right? I haven't really felt like I haven't been able to impact a game when I have spotting. And so I think this ship, it's going to be a challenging ship to play, not because of the guns, but because it's so slow and the repositioning and initial positioning is so important. I think if you struggle with knowing where to go on a map, I think this is not the ship for you. I really don't believe that. it's something that I've seen complained about this ship a lot, is that people aren't feeling like they can impact the game. I've seen this in my Twitch chat, a couple other videos and that kind of thing, and I really disagree with that, but I think I have a very I think I'm a lot better than 99% of people in my ability to position my battleship correctly, and I think that's why I'm able to do better in this ship. So it's a challenging ship to play for sure, but it's really rewarding when you get it right. So as you can see, I do run range mod and spotter plane, so I can shoot at longer ranges. Now that's a skill that I've developed for like Kings of the Sea type stuff, right? I'm sure you guys remember me and William the Dank playing Montanas in Kings of the Sea and shooting people at 30 plus kilometers. That's not something that you just happen to start doing. It's something that you practice. So that's part of the reason I think why I also am able to get more out of this ship, is I'm a little bit better at hitting shots at longer ranges. As we're getting into a brawl here, I shouldn't really be talking about the range shots, but you saw a little bit of them earlier. It's a lot about prediction, and I went over that in my aiming video. It's all about predicting what an enemy ship is likely to do, and not about where they're going currently, unless you assume that they're not going to react. But most good players are just going to react, because they'll have incoming fire alert or something like that, or they'll be watching you. But this ship really does damage to people. I love the gunpowder, and if I'm sounding a little bit torn on this ship, it's because I am. I have not experienced a ship that has this kind of gunpowder in a long time. This reminds me of Montana on release. This really does, as far as gunpowder goes, because there weren't many ships in the game that had tons of 30mm overmatch, or 30mm of armor, which you couldn't overmatch. There weren't very many ships with crazy high DPM that forced you to go out, leave the battle. Montana on release was such a strong battleship because there wasn't much in the game that could bounce you. So the difference between the 406mm guns and the 460mm guns in Yamato was only in the battleship class difference. And you could position to catch battleship broadside, so it wasn't a big deal. But now we have so many cruisers with 30mm of armor that, in a Montana, you're constantly feeling like you're shooting at angled ships that you're just going to deal nothing to. And here I just want to highlight that the ship's gunpowder is so good. 7 full pens does 35,000 damage. Can you imagine if we full pen 10 or even 12? I mean, that's unlikely, but at closer ranges, you could do 12 full pens. And I can see dealing 50,000 damage to a Kurfürst without citadels, which is crazy, right? Like, that's insane, because that's the whole Kurfürst gimmick, is that at close range, it's going to be able to soak maybe 2 to 3 shots from a battleship that other battleships would just die to because they would be citadeled. That's kind of the Kurfürst thing, but against this thing, the Kurfürst got to be really careful. I've had some shots around 15 to 18 kilometers that are in that 30k range as well, pretty consistently. It's good, this gunpowder. Now you see I've pushed in here pretty aggressively. There I am just a little bit too low, but still got 17k from 6 full pens. And we're gonna die here. I really should talk about how squishy this ship is. Despite it having some armor, and it can be reasonably well angled, I think. The issue is that it's just so much superstructure, and it's just so big that you're never really going to overpen stuff, or people are never really going to overpen on you, and it's going to be really easy to hit more shells in a salvo, right? Because a lot of ships take less damage simply because a few of the shells of everybody's salvo misses, and that's just how it works when you're shooting at slim ships, like, you know, say a Hindenburg or something like that. Or even, we could take another battleship like Kremlin, and how low it is in the water. It's going to be hard, at least at longer ranges, to hit on the belt all your shells, because your dispersion will just be too vertical for that. So it's a ship like Vermont, and all of these new American battleships are going to take more damage than the equivalent battleship, even if they had the same armor profile and characteristics, because it's just so high out of the water. It's why ships like Petro are so hard to deal damage to, because it's so unreasonably low in the water. And that's, I mean, obviously a huge weakness. Huge weakness. The Vermont really struggles. I mean, here I'm pushing into a few battleships. The game's over here. I was thinking, oh, I'll try and kite these guys away, but and I was hoping that I'd do my turn before this Kremlin died, or I hoped that people would shoot the Kremlin instead of me. But that's not the case. They all just decided to focus on me before the Kremlin died. So we eat a huge hit. As you can see, this thing takes massive damage on the broadside. The Citadel is slightly above water, and you can definitely hit that Citadel. Unfortunately, Republics are Republics, and anytime I'm shooting one, I deal no damage to it, and anytime I'm playing one, I take around 10 to 20k every salvo. And that's just how Republic works. So, yeah, Vermont is not a tanky ship. I found I have tanked a lot of... I don't know. I've tanked a lot of damage, but I don't think that's because the ship is especially tanky. I think it's because I've been playing a lot at range. The last couple days, been playing at extreme ranges because everybody wants to shoot this thing. Even more than, like, me playing on my regular account. I won't say I'm focused all the time because of who I am, my clan tag, or my stats. But I will say some of the time, it certainly is different on this server compared to the account I just started on Russia's server. It's a very different experience. And I think that comes down to stats, clan tag, and who I am. And that's not every game, but as you can see, as we get 30k'd, this ship takes a lot of damage. I think this ship will get better as people are more used to seeing it and not just instantly focusing it just because it's the new ship, which is hopefully going to make the games go a little bit better. As it stands, this is currently my worst tier 10 battleship. Only by a little bit. It's, I think, like 500 average damage below my Montana, so not like awful, but it's certainly low. And I think that that'll go up over time as I get used to the ship and start playing it a little bit better. Don't get myself into situations like this where I'm just caught bow in to people. I think it'll go up. And I hope that it'll go up because the teams get a little bit better too. It is patch day. It's a pretty big patch too because it's the Christmas starting of the Christmas patch type stuff. So a lot of people are going to come back to the game. So team quality has not been great in the last couple days, and I think that's also impacting things. There's games where I have not been able to impact the game at all, and I don't think that's the ship's fault. I think that's just a function of how the teams are right now, because there's games where the whole enemy team, nobody on the enemy team has been spotted for up to like 2 to 3 minutes at a time. So it's really, really hard to deal damage in games like that, because you have such a long reload that you need to be shooting pretty much on cooldown to get the most damage out of the ship as you possibly can. This thing really, really, really does require planning ahead and positioning well so that when your 40-second reload's up, you have a target to shoot at. I think a lot of people are overblowing or overemphasizing how bad a 40-second reload is. If they really checked on how often they shot in their other battleships with, say, 30-second reload, I would think they'd find that they shoot every 33 to 38 seconds. So waiting a couple more seconds for the shot isn't the end of the world, I think. I think there's certainly times where, yeah, DPM is just worse, but sometimes you're waiting for that cruiser to turn, sometimes you're waiting for that just perfect shot across the map for that ship to be spotted. I think that's really going to help this ship be okay. The problem is if the cruiser makes that turn mid-reload, right? Because you do have to wait 40 seconds. So you're not like a Republic where you can lock a cruiser in and still shoot at them the whole time, right? And by that I mean, if a cruiser's coming directly towards you, you can shoot them, and a Republic will be reloaded in time to catch them if they try to turn out and turn away and turn broadside and try and disengage the situation. A Republic, a Thunderer, they'll be reloaded in time to catch that broadside, whereas a Vermont certainly will not be reloaded in time. A Montana and a Yamato aren't really reloaded in time to catch most cruisers in those turns. So I think that's going to be one issue. But I wouldn't consider this ship necessarily so bad on DPM, simply because you can think of this ship as two Georges smacked together, right? You got 6 guns in the front, 6 guns in the back, and a 40-second reload means that if you had each of the 6 guns essentially is on a 20-second. If you were a 6-gun battleship, you would have a 20-second reload. So if you want to, in a situation like that where a cruiser's rushing and you know they want to turn out eventually, you could shoot your front guns only at them and then wait 20 seconds, shoot your back guns only, wait 20 seconds, shoot your front guns again, wait 20 seconds. Now I know that's not like ideal play, but it can certainly help you to deal with this reload and still be effective at these mind games with cruisers and other battleship players. Now here I pushed in too far. I mean, look at my team's positioning. They were just hiding behind me as I was trying to stay at the back a little bit more because the ship can't push. So I was like, well, I have to push to help this game progress, and we lose most of our health for it. So I ended up just turning around and trying to win that game by pushing the middle, which I died. But there was some team play there. But you saw they were kind of blind firing me in smoke a little bit much. I don't know if that's because of my clan tag or the new ship or who I am, but it's a little bit interesting to see that amount of focus fire. Seems a little bit excessive considering how many ships were around me. Now, this last little bit is just going to be the crazy shots that I was hitting. I've played 20 games so far on this ship, and it's safe to say that I've been hitting people a lot harder with this ship than any other battleship. I've had more dev strikes in the last 20 games than I have in a while. As you know, game for game, like let's say there's 3 to 4 games between dev strikes. Well, the ratio probably would have been more like 5 to 10 with other battleships, just because of how disgusting this accuracy is and how much damage these shells do. Keep in mind these shells do 15,750 damage each if they citadel. So a lot of the time you don't even need your full salvo on a lot of these guys. It just hits people that hard. It's fun. The problem is the everything else, the positioning, the waiting for the reload all the time, the bad armor. It forces you to play very passive, and I'm not sure if it's possible to push in too much in this ship yet, simply because of what I've talked about earlier and the amount of focus fire this ship gets right now. I think in the next month or so, the hype will die down and people will start to maybe ignore this ship more in favor of other ships that are better targets, that kind of thing. At least I hope that's what's going to happen. And I'll have a little bit better picture of what this ship can do. But as you can see in the earlier kind of brawling game that I had, I did try to brawl in this ship. I certainly have tried to push in, and it does do really, really good things when you're up close. Because you're essentially going to hit 12 of these guns every time just because of how the dispersion is. Now, you can slap aircraft carriers too. It feels really, really nice. And of course, the AA is a thing on this ship that's actually pretty good. You can see the AA damage in the top right corner there. Look at how fast it's going up, and look at how many planes we've shot down. And that's no fighter planes, right? Like, a lot of the times these aircraft shot down metrics are way overdone by the amount of like fighter consumables the CV drops, whereas this ship, it actually takes down real squads relatively quickly with its defensive fire. And on my captain, I'm only running BFT, so I'm not even running like the full AA build that I possibly could. I'm not taking any AA modules either. So if you really, really hate aircraft carriers going after your, as we see a good example of what Overmatch can do, very, very convenient to have. But if you want to screw over CVs, that you know, if you find you're just getting attacked over and over and over again, this could be a ship for you if you just put it full AA build. Here on the mini-map, we see the Midway spotted, and this is who I want to kill. So I'm thinking of taking a shot at the Montana. Do I? I do, okay. I wanted to show this full clip just to show you what's going through my mind. The Midway is behind that island. That's a very common island for an aircraft carrier to sit behind. It happens most of the time, really, if the battle progresses to that corner as far as where the enemy team is concentrated. You know, the island in H10 or 9 is another island for the other side on that side. You know, there's these islands in the corners that CVs like to hide behind. But the nice part about this current one that the CV is hiding behind is that it's actually a really short island. So we're actually able to lob over this. So this is why you should really have, if you're not running any mods, at least make sure you turn on last known positions, because I think the little circle icon is on by default. And there's some pretty nice things you can do with just the circle and last known positions. Because we know this Midway is probably not going to leave that position. You know, there's DD's torping over there. There's all these things. So he's not really wanting to leave. He wants to get the last little bit of damage. So I think we can get maybe a nice little shot on him here with our spotter point. And you'll see we just line it up with his last known position. We want to hit, you know, his broadside-ish armor. The goal is not to hit the deck armor, because we're just going to bounce. So we do want to hit near the waterline. But because we slapped him so hard earlier, we really only need like one citadel and he's dead. So it's things like this that you can do with this ship. Like, just look at how much range it has. It has like 34 kilometers of range with the range mod and the spotter plane. So you're able to lob these shells, and that's something I haven't talked about yet, is the shell drag character, or the flight characteristics of these shells. They have very, very little shell drag, which makes it a lot easier to hit ships at longer ranges, because you're having a more consistent flight time out to these longer ranges. And that was front guns only at that Montana, by the way. 6 guns just dealt that much damage to a Montana broadside. And the follow-up isn't quite as good. I think we get around 10k. But that's still, like, really, really good damage if that was a full salvo, you know? That's 40k-ish. So this last little bit is just going to be some more clips of just utterly disgusting salvos. And that's why I like this ship. I don't think this ship is bad. I don't think the ship is overpowered, though, either. I think it's just a good tier 10 battleship with a... It's got its place. I don't think it's gonna replace any battleships anytime soon, because for the most part, people are gonna want to play ships that are faster. They can move around the ship map better. Like, Bourgogne is a great example of a ship that's incredibly fun to play, because you're constantly able to reposition and get good angles on people. And this ship won't be able to play like that. And admittedly, it is a much more boring passive playstyle, but it fits the meta pretty well, I think, because you have so much range, you have 30 millimeters of overmatch, you have good AA. This ship is very strong in the current meta, but the problem with the current meta is that it's quite boring and very passive at tier 10, where everybody wants to sit at the back and not really push in ever, and just constantly, I don't know. I don't really like the way the meta has changed. I wish Wargaming would put an effort into crafting their game. And what I mean by that is, I wish they would take responsibility for the state of the game, and I wish they would act in a way to make it their own. And the reason I say these things is, in a recent kind of Q&A with Wargaming, they talked about how they're not really planning on nerfing or buffing certain things based on the meta or community feedback, I think it was. I'm actually not remembering it quite correctly, but essentially what they were saying is they essentially didn't really take responsibility for the meta of the game, and they kind of just talked about how the player base would play a ship a certain way no matter what they did. And that just seems really It's a really weird way of thinking to me, because a player is always going to play a ship as optimally as possible, as much as they possibly can to get the most out of the ship. So if that's spamming high explosive from the back of the map to keep their ship safe and deal the most damage possible, that's what they're going to do. But it's like Wargaming doesn't understand that that's how the player mindset is. It's to get the most out of the ship. It's not, oh, they want to HE spam from the back of the map. I don't think most people want to HE spam from the back of the map. I think that's just what people have been trained to see as the most effective. So yeah, thanks for watching. This is the Vermont First Impressions. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll probably come out with a review later, but I don't really have a solid foundation on this ship with only 20 games, right? So have a good day, guys.